Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you happen to find yourself on the world at the moment, and welcome to QS in Conversation Live. I am Anton John Crace, and I'm the editor and program designer at QS Quacquarelli Symonds, based out of a very rainy and soon it seems to be lightning and thundery Singapore, so enjoy the show behind me. Now, this is the second part of our two-part series in partnership with Coursera about digital transformation in universities. Thank you to everyone who joined us last month for the European version of it. This week, we're looking at the Asia Pacific. Joining us tonight to discuss this is Dr. Joyce Teo Sway Yun, the Assistant Vice Chancellor and Vice President Global Affairs of University Brunei Darussalam, Sandeep Sachiti, Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sandeep of SRMIST India, Attorney Lily Frida Miller, the Officer in Charge at the Commission for Higher Education in the Philippines, and Dr. K. Ramakrishna, Dean Quality at KL University, who replaces Dr. Reddy, who unfortunately is unwell. And we also have Raghav Gupta, who is the Managing Director, India and APAC for Coursera. As with all of our QS in Conversations, you, the audience, are as much a part of this as we are. So we'd love to have your questions come through using the Q&A function, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. In the meantime, the first question I have for our panelists is, how is digital transformation changing the way that your university is doing things and also your higher education system is doing things? And to get us started, I am going to pass over straight away to Dr. Sandeep. Could you tell us a little bit about the digital transformation that's taking place within your institution?
Greetings to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Anton. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And also a special thanks to my co-panelists and Coursera. I belong to SRM in India, in Chennai, and we are one of the biggest standalone university of the country with more than 50,000 students. So we had to be on our toes to deal with the current set of pandemic or situation. And as a result, use of digital technologies or technology for that matter was absolutely essential. There is nothing which would have survived us without the use of digital technology. I would say a few things about the digital technology, why it's important or how we are using it maybe. One, because digital technologies are what you call unifying in nature. They don't discriminate that this is audio, this is video, this is different, that is different. Everything gets unified into something singular unit or singular setup, and therefore the operations or transportation or storage or distribution, modification, alteration, everything becomes easy for us. So that's one thing. Number two, we find that if we have to close anything or start anything, digital is the best way, because let's say if we talk about cloud technologies, they can be very, very helpful to us to start something new. We don't have to create the infrastructure. We can scale it up as we want. It can be ready in hardly any time in terms of time or gestation, if we call it. And therefore, there is a beauty in digital technologies to support us in education. Unfortunately, in education all over the world, I would say, the technology did not creep in a very big way. We were resistive to it. We were not supporting it very much, but COVID has changed. And therefore, I would say that digital transformations are now happening. And once they happen, I have my take that these transformations become permanent. I've never seen a technology coming in our life in some way, whether it is in the mobile or in the automobile, or whether it's going to be in kitchen, or whether it's going to be in the classroom, that it's going to vanish. No, it becomes permanent part of our life. And therefore, this transformation will continue. And what it does is, for teaching learning especially, it makes the teaching learning more student-centric, because all of us probably know that it allows a student freedom of any time, anywhere, any mode, any language, any speed. So many such features are given to the students which were not there. So till now, I would say education was primarily either the institution-centric or teacher-centric at the best, but it was not student-centric. So even that change is going to come in a very big way. And now imagine the technologies which are going to make a foray into this. AI, for example, is going to help me with knowing my student much better in terms of his performance and his level of acceptance, whether he's an advanced student or he's a laggard student. Everything would be known to me very easily if I'm able to make use of AI and some other tools of that particular nature. So technology particularly digital technology will be a boon. And there are a few more reasons for that. Number one, it provides you end-to-end edtech platforms. Technology gives you an end-to-end connectivity in every particular form. It also allows me a good student life cycle management, which is very much required from admission to the placement or whatever it may be, maybe even later when they become alumni. I need to really track them and help them if I can. And finally, assessing my quality, feedback, and accreditation and various other rankings, ratings, all those managing outside agencies who rate us and do something with us can also be very easy with the digital technology. And with the digital, I will say, other partners like Coursera, as you know, can come in. If the technology was not digital, I think their presence in form of MOOC or other courses which they offer to us in terms of projects or in terms of training or in terms of some certain skills delivery would not have happened easily. So essentially speaking, physical will be non-scalable and non-optimal and highly costly and maybe very, very, in terms of equity and access, probably more challenging. Whereas digital will flatten everything and it will be accessible to everyone at a very cheap cost. That's the digital technology or transformation we are looking at right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Sandeep, and that's quite a packed answer to the question there. You made some interesting points. I think that in the other panelists I could see were nodding their heads along with. One comment, which was it makes it much more the teaching and learning much more student-centric. There's also been a lot of the talk about it also makes it a little bit more, it provides more data for the educators to work out that if a part of their curriculum isn't being understood as well as it could be, they can see the data around it and say, okay, a lot of my students are stuck in this area. Dr. Lily, Attorney Lily, you were one of those that were aggressively nodding your head along. Given your position, which is within the Philippines and more of a country level, how is digital transformation changing that higher education space at the moment?
Thank you, Anton. Good evening from here in the Philippines and to my esteemed co-panelists. Yes, I was nodding my head to Dr. Sandeep because I think he has already covered all the areas. But I'd like to talk on the aspect of being a ministry. The Commission on Higher Education is the government agency that supervises higher education in the Philippines, both public and private. So how did it transform in a large scale? I can talk to you about on the scope and the breadth of how it has impacted the whole of higher education in the Philippines. When the pandemic happened and there was immediately the closures and the lockdowns, our chairman, Dr. J. Prosper de Vera, immediately said, learning must continue, and quarantine or not. And immediately there is that shift in flexible learning. And as pointed out by Dr. Sandeep, flexible learning is more learner-centered. It is deeply rooted into the needs of the students. And the main objective really is to provide the most flexibility to them in terms of schedule, access, resources, and using digital and non-digital tools. You have to understand that in the Philippines, we have 7,641 islands, low tide. Okay, and therefore, how do you reach that number of islands, which is most of them are populated with about 3.3 million students, both public and private. So flexible learning was our immediate response. But then we need to really move also with much agile, with much flexibility, and with much innovation. Together with shifting immediately to flexible learning from the previous setting of, a classroom base, you have the teacher as the center of everything. Now you have to really utilize not just teacher, but also communities and also other resources, just so we can continue to deliver education. And therefore, we've also set up what we call the PhilChed Connect. It's an online repository of open educational resources, which have really been provided by many of our partners, and thank you, both local and international. And we also have what we call the Philippine Higher Education Bayanihan. Bayanihan is the spirit of generosity in the Philippines, wherein we get to share and help others, especially the smaller colleges, on how they can immediately do the transition to flexible learning.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much for
Anton.
that response.
I
Thank you
wanted
very
to
much
say
for that.
more, but I think I should be, I should
Oh,
be
well,
ending that. Okay.
yes, we should have some time at the end to discuss it even further. And of course, if anyone in the audience has a question for our esteemed guests, please do use that Q&A. Raghav, considering the work that Coursera is doing, you're also from the other side of it. What are the initiatives that are being implemented within that digital transformation of higher education space that you see from a private side?
Absolutely, Anton. Thanks for that question. And again, hello, everyone, and good afternoon to all the panelists, and good evening to all the panelists as well. I mean, overall, and I think Dr. Sancheti said this and Lily said this as well. From my point of view, the last 3 quarters of disruption are probably bringing out a decade of change for all of us in the working world and in higher education. And before I talk about higher education, because we work with industry significantly as well, and higher education is, getting students ready for careers and for jobs and so on, it's helpful to call out that while we focus on higher education, COVID is having a massive impact on industry and on jobs as well, right? We're expecting already that for the next 2, 3, 4 years, industry is going to be in recession and new jobs are going to be very hard to come by. And while a lot of higher education institutions have been very focused on continuing education and on new enrollments, I think higher education institutions will shortly be also thinking about what happens with placements for the upcoming season. The other thing that I think is helpful to call out is we have seen that with industry, work is changing. And so CEOs and industry leaders are asking for new skills of their workforce, existing workforce, and also the new workforce. So many companies are investing in learning of their employees on digital skills, on skills related to data, on skills related to working in a virtual world, and also being able to be more resilient in these times. And I think these are asks that will be relevant for higher education as well. I think Dr. Sandeep said this, that higher education has traditionally been a bit slow to adopt technology. But over the last 8 months, at least from Coursera's point of view, we have seen massive adoption. Our platform, which is called Coursera for Campus, was made available to colleges and universities around the world for free from the middle of March. And pre-COVID, there were about 30 universities around the world that were using this platform. As of now, there are 3,700 higher education institutions around the world who are using this platform, where 2.4 million students have enrolled. These students have taken 21 million course enrollments. And interestingly, 70% of this learning has happened on a mobile device. So we've seen massive adoption, but I think there are interesting learnings for all of us to think about. One of these, and I'll pause with that, is that along with learning and knowledge, students are very excited about hands-on learning online as well. And we launched something called Guided Projects about 4 months ago, completely new content piece on the Coursera platform, where there are about 600 guided projects on our platform now, where you can, in a period of 1 or 2 hours, actually get into a virtual machine and learn something new. And we have seen that students have taken 1.5 million guided projects in the last 4 months. And I think this is something which is completely, disrupting how education has traditionally been delivered. And like I said, we're in the middle of all of this, but I think we will look back after 6 months or after 2 years, and at that stage realize what has been the pace and the impact of change that higher education would have gone through.
That, Raghav. So far, we've already hit on some comments that have been made by other people on the QS in Conversation lives and podcasts, which is very much that COVID-19 has not been the catalyst for this change, but it has been an accelerant. And I do like your comment, Raghav, that the last 3 quarters has really brought about around a decade of change. Dr. Joyce, from your perspective, in terms of the work that your university is doing within the digital transformation, I want to change up the question a little bit and ask, what sort of experiments have you been undertaking, such as experimenting with synchronous, asynchronous learning, measuring educational outcomes? Is there anything that hasn't been working, and is there anything that has really been working for you?
Thank you very much, Anton, and thank you very much for the QS invitation, as well as greetings to all the co-panelists, as well as the audience this evening. Greetings from University Brunei Darussalam. Thank you for the question. Maybe I will start with University Brunei Darussalam is the premier national university in Brunei Darussalam. And in fact, in March, within 2 days after Brunei was hit with the first COVID-19 case, University Brunei Darussalam, or UBD, immediately transformed all our curriculum into the online learning. The reason why UBD was able to transform into the online learning within the 3 days, it was because all the while we have the Gen Next program that we started in 2009. So it's very structured that it made the transformation rather smoothly. So what is interesting, especially with your questions regarding the asynchronous and the synchronous. So when we started, I will share maybe 2 points over here, and we'll be happy to also expand on it later on. So what is interesting is from the March to the 2nd of June, our campus has never been closed. So it has opened, but we changed it to the online campus. That means online lectures, online tutorials. And the lab work has been kept to a social distancing compliance where students will go with the different shift. So that was the situation between March to May. So what was interesting, point one was we started with the synchronous learning because at the very first stage when it was transformed, it's online learning. So we tried the synchronous. Of course, I believe that this has been met by, I think, similar issues met by other universities as well, as sometimes students do not get very smooth internet connection. So synchronous learning was not easy to reach that effectiveness that we wanted. So what we tried was, we tried the asynchronous mixture. So we had the asynchronous learning as well. So the lecturers, the professors have pre-recorded to have the online lectures. We found that that tackled the issues of the internet connectivity. So that was first, I would say, issues we met and the solution that we had. And second, very interesting would be, you would be thinking that when the university transformed into an online learning institution where the professors will know what to do. Yes, most of them will know what to do, but it's very interesting would be because sometimes they so get used to the PowerPoint. So the still PowerPoint that you put online was not as interesting. So what we do, the point two that I would like to share over here would be, we had a SUP system, which is the skills upgrading for all the professors. So we make it compulsory with the point system that every professors in our university will need to go through this SUP workshop to make sure that they're kept to that pedagogy, will ensure effectiveness in teaching and learning. So maybe I'll stop at this point. We'll be very happy to come back to talk about, at the moment, from the 2nd of June until now, UBD has been at the de-escalation phase where we already gone into the structured blended learning. So students come back to campus where we have the blended that, but pretty much we still kept on only face-to-face for the tutorials, the lab work, the discussion, the dialogues, where the lectures are very much, we still would like to keep it online. So I'll keep at that, and maybe we'll come back to the other point that I can expand further. Thank you, Anton.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joyce. And there's a couple of things in there that I would like to ask some follow-up questions, but we'll pass it on. Your comments about the synchronous learning and going to some partly asynchronous because of connection issues. I can say on behalf of the team here running virtual conferences, we have very much the same issues as well, not just for the participants, but also for speakers as well. Dr. Krishna, for you, what sort of work is your institution taking within the digital transformation space?
Yeah. Very good evening, and my greetings to all the co-panelists and the moderator, Mr. Anton Grace. I am from KL University. It is a graded 1 university in India. In recent NIRF ranking by Ministry of Human Resource Development, we have got 41 rank among all universities across the India, and our student strength is more than 17,000, and we have around 1,100 faculty members with 500 and odd doctorates. In fact, before this COVID situation, since a long time, we have been practicing the blended learning in our college. We have our own learning management system in which students are asked to do some of the courses offline and some even through online. So when this COVID pandemic arrived and when lockdown was announced during March 2020, the transition from offline learning to online learning became very easy for us. And in fact, in the process of digital transformation, we have observed some advantages with reference to the knowledge and skill levels obtained by our students. Basically, what is that is the competitive spirit among the students is increased, and most of them were data driven, and they have also when we have also started introducing the concept of spaced learning. That concept of spaced learning, that means in a 50 minutes of session, we teach only 15 minutes, 1-5, followed by a gap in which a pop-up question will be raised. So students have to answer that question, which will be considered as his presence and his attentiveness in the class also. And then remaining another 15 minutes, the session continues. And finally, it is followed by a small quiz consisting of 3 or 4 multiple choice questions. This kind of teaching through digital way helped our students to retain the knowledge for a longer period, and it is a proven method of learning, which we call it as spaced learning. And similarly, while using these digital learning techniques or through online, our faculty members have used the interactive whiteboards, and through the interactive whiteboards which are connected to the internet, the digital notes as well as the animations, videos that are available in the internet are made helpful for them, made useful for them to understand the subject content easily. So in my opinion, one way this digital transformation is a boon to the Indian students, where they are accustomed and equipped with, they are able to learn a lot by referring to a large content available in the net. Otherwise, most of the student mentality in Indian continent is they restrict to the classroom teaching. They don't open anything else except the notes given by the faculty member, and that trend has now gone off, and students have started learning on their own, and they are now self-directed. This kind of e-learning also made the students to become more disciplined, because the moment we start the class, automatically the attendance is also recorded in the LMS system, and hence they are able to, their attendance is also automatically recorded, and hence they have started attending the classes regularly, and a kind of discipline also they developed in the process of this digital learning technique. And similarly, even in our, I am proud to announce that since this COVID lockdown period, our university has not lost even a single working day, which is as per our academic calendar. Even examinations also, we have conducted online through proctoring, and we were successful in conducting all the kind of formative assessments through online. Internships as well as value-added courses also through collaboration with various industries, like using the platforms like Coursera, we have introduced, and our students are able to even undergo the internship successfully. Placement opportunities also we have given to our students using the platforms like Cisco WebEx and Microsoft Teams. The different organizations have conducted the interviews, and they have selected bag full of students now. More than 20% of our final year students have already got very good placements. Even I am proud to say we are able to get good faculty by means of this digitalization, because attending the interviews became so easy through Skype or through these WebEx platforms. So digitalization is a very essential phenomena for a country like ours, and this kind of situation has made or created a kind of good awareness among all the student community to learn, use, and the opportunity to learn from the net. In fact, it is in the industrial 4.0 or even in education 4.0, we are all aware that artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data analytics are going to play a vital role in the future. Unless the student community is exposed to this kind of digitalization, it is very difficult for them in future to cope up with these subject areas. So I feel it is a boon for all the students. They are all accustomed now, and now it is a cakewalk for them to go into this the skill requirement, which is essential for the future prospects of their work. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Krishna. And I can see already we have received quite a few questions coming through for the panelists, and we're just about hitting the halfway mark, and we're only just hit the first question. So I'll ask the delegates, the panelists to just stick to one point only when answering my questions. The next question I have is around framework universities, and what I want to do is I will start with the university representatives, and then I'll go to Lily and Raghav to discuss this a bit further. But what sort of frameworks are being used and planning or adopting to drive through this transition? So this is sort of beyond COVID-19. I know it's hard to escape it, but what are the frameworks and the positionings that your institution is taking? And I'll pass over to you, Dr. Joyce, to kick us off with your response to that.
Thank you very much, Anton. With regards to these, I think very important that first of all, we would like to share this would be a couple of times that when we are in the dialogue with various stakeholders, we talk about there is no going back to the old normal. So we will be advancing into a new normal. So that is some kind of a fact that we all will be gradually relating to as well. So after we have established this fact, the second thing that what we will be looking into would be at the university and higher education level, like in University Brunei Darussalam, we are looking into one is the structured blended learning. That means that, as I've shared earlier, we will be keeping the online for lectures. That means we are not going to have the lectures face-to-face anymore in the new norm. We will keep, but it's very important that, like Dr. Krishna said, sometimes it is very important to keep that interest of the students up. So it's very important that in terms of the tutorial, especially for the practical, the lab work, we still need the students to come on campus. So that's the part where we have the face-to-face. So structured blended learning, I believe in UBD, as well as for the other higher education institution will be there to stay. And very quickly, I know it's one point, but I will just quickly stick on to the second, would be saying that going along with that will be, I will believe, the concept of the lifelong learning will be adopted by UBD as well as by the other institutions worldwide as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Joyce. Dr. Sandeep, for you, what sort of frameworks is your institution implementing for the continued digitization of higher education?
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll fully concur with what Joyce has just now shared. And I would also go to the extent of saying that there will be hardly any institution in India or anywhere in the world would not be adopting the new normal or the new methods of this. Whether we like it or not, technology once comes into our life, finds a permanent place, as I said, and therefore technology will be now essential part of this, meaning thereby till 2019, and you can say our teaching learning was completely synchronous, offline, physical. But now it's going to all change, whether it is going to be a distance one or online one or virtual one or hybrid or blended, I'm not worried. I will tend to call it as a flexible learning, go as you please, study as you please, do as you please kind of a thing. And therefore, we will give our students an option of choosing what they want. How would they like to make their degree? I will go to even to the extent that they define their degrees, not only that what is a method of teaching learning. So institutions will possibly become educational boutiques, you can say, where you get a designer's degree, designer's course, any combination, any topping, anything which you want. That is how the education would be. So for a given degree, let's say an engineering degree in computer science, one student may take 20% online and 80% offline, and another one may be exactly reverse, 80% offline and 20% online kind of a thing. These kind of changes would have to be permitted. Fortunately, Government of India, which was very restrictive on certain policies of distance education and online education, and also the contents of MOOC, which Coursera delivers in a very big way, was restrictive to 20%, has suddenly gone up to 40%. And I'm also working on a UGC committee right today. After this meeting, we have that meeting where we are going to expand it further, that there should be more liberty given to that. So not only the courses, theory courses, as was said by Joyce, we will also go to the laboratory work. Already we are on to it. We are in SRM offering around 50% of our courses to laboratory courses to be online. And fortunately, we started experimenting with these things some few years back. We call it eLab. One of the eLab is for programming, coding, etc., which is easy. Another eLab, which is where there are different names given to that as a part of eLab. That's for the circuit and electrical branches, because a lot of simulation and modeling can be there. And the third one is for the communication and analytical skills. We already have in-house tools done under the Center for Applied Research in Education, CARE we call it. And therefore, we are kind of raring to give students that framework which they like. From our side, it will be a very, very liberal one. And therefore, I would tend to name it as a flexible education system. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Sandeep. A lot of your comments actually remind me of a webinar that I was hosting last week with Maria Spies from Holland IQ. She was asked a question around the online education space. There is a lower completion rate than the in-person, and that might be a bit of an issue, to which she challenged the idea that completion was the intention of every student that undertook an online course. Sometimes I was simply undertaking it because I wanted a very specific piece of information and they went off somewhere else. So it's very interesting to hear about talking about the designer versions, the almost make your own Sunday. Dr. Krishna, for you, what sort of frameworks are you implementing to go beyond COVID-19 within digital transformation?
So actually these digital transformation techniques we are adopting is using mostly our own ERP. We have developed our own LMS and ERP systems through which we are doing these online learning and online learning process. In fact, we have even initiated as Sandeep sir said, we are also even conducting the laboratory courses through online, and some of the lab equipment we have made remote. That means the students can do their project works as well as their practicals in a remote manner. And moreover, the students are given liberty to do their coursework using the MOOC platform like Coursera, and for which the faculty member is also made a part of that learning process. So any faculty member who has assigned a course, he has to do the courses along with the Coursera course, and then he has to frame the questions to suit to that. Now, even if the COVID pandemic situation is over, as you have rightly pointed out, because this system is found to be a proven, well-established system, which is going to give a kind of self-discipline as well as self-directed motivation to the student, we would like to continue the theoretical part through online mode and only the practical aspects. And wherever the physical presence of the student is necessary for project works, etc., we will bring them to the campus. So unless there is a the dire need of his presence is required on campus, we would like to teach them only through online. And I am sure that the courses like what is being adopted by Coursera or other MOOCs platforms will definitely serve that purpose. Along with our own LMS, through which we are developing our own coursework, we are placing it in our LMS, and that will also help our students to learn from their home. So this is our plan actually, and this will definitely will help the management as well as the student community to learn at their own pace and they can repeatedly learn the same thing until they digest the content what is being given to them. So that advantage they possess once we switch over to online learning, particularly the theory courses. This is my opinion. And we would like to continue the same.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Krishna. Lily, I'm excited to hear your opinions on this because you are not from an institution, you are of an overseeing body. So what sort of frameworks is the government encouraging be implemented in the Philippines to implement further digital innovations?
Overall, Anton, it is still our framework remains to achieve accessible, equitable, and quality education for all. We still want to remain on track with that, and I think all of us are in agreement with that one. This COVID may have, we may have stalled it a bit, but I think we'd like to also see the silver lining in this pandemic. It brought about some decisions, programs, and actions that in the past would have been very difficult to really pass. But because you need to be agile and adopt, you need to take into a lot of of um, the trends that are happening and how we can truly capacitate faculty, higher education institutions so that they can adapt immediately to the digital transformation. Digitalization is a thrust of the commission in the Philippines. But what COVID did was to accelerate this one. And now we're like doing everything at the same time. And as I said, there are so many learnings during this COVID that we want that these learnings and the experiences that we have and the reforms that we have done to be taken into the transformation. And as Dr. Joyce said, there is no going back. I think we are looking forward to a new and better normal. We would like to bring our universities fully into this digital transformation, and we would like our students to be ready, not just our students, but our faculty to have that badge of digital and global citizenship in them.
That's a really nice way to end that, your comments, Lily, in terms of hopefully going to a much better new normal as well. Raghav, for you, you are also on the other side, not necessarily with an institution, but the frameworks, is there any recommendations or frameworks that Coursera is putting out there, or is there anything that you are starting to notice in terms of the way in which institutions are moving? So far, we've heard that a lot of the institutions and universities were already in the process and then used Coursera to move on further down the line.
So I think a framework for digital transformation has many facets to it, as one can imagine, Anton. And one core facet to a framework for digital transformation is how universities are using online content. And let me talk a little bit about that from what we are seeing. Firstly, fundamentally, I think by using a platform like Coursera, the fundamental change that is happening is universities are saying, we are now okay to share content across universities. That's a fundamental change that we are seeing, right? So what Dr. Krishna spoke about, what Dr. Sandeep spoke about in terms of their institutions using Coursera for their students, they are saying, firstly, this cross collaboration is something that we see value in and that we are okay with. And with that in mind, what Dr. Sandeep also mentioned is that, universities are using platforms like Coursera for maybe 10, 20, 40% of what they're teaching to their students on campus. With that in mind, a good framework to keep in mind has 5 parts to it. And we are seeing universities use one or more of these parts. So firstly, universities are using online content to for the core program itself, right? So if a school is an engineering school or a business school or a science school, whatever, they are complementing using blended learning programs to be able to supplement the core degree program itself. The second thing that we are seeing is higher education institutions are also bringing emerging technologies across different programs to their students using a platform like Coursera. And the objective here is that irrespective of whether you're studying to be an engineer or a liberal arts student, chances are that you will need to apply technology in your job in the future. And so to enable students to stay at the cutting edge and to have a head start when it comes to applying technology, universities are using online content on Coursera for emerging technology related education. The third element that we see is about bringing multidisciplinary education to students, which is well understood. But again, the objective here is to develop versatile learners who can think across subjects as well. The fourth is a focus on career, right? So how do you equip students for professional success with the most in-demand human skills, especially in a virtual work environment? And so universities are thinking about career-related online education, which you may or may not be teaching on campus. And then lastly, the fifth element is digital teaching. Some faculty members have had experience and ability to teach online pre-COVID, but most have not had that experience. So how can you learn, how can you provide learning for faculty to help them with their own digital transformation to meet the needs of a virtual world? So I think just thinking about the online content and thinking about what we call a house of content across either core topics or emerging technologies, multidisciplinary topics, career, and then finally digital teaching, I think is probably a helpful framework to think about.
Thank you very much for that, Raghav. For some reason, I was thinking during your second point, you mentioned that chances are students and graduates are going to need to use emerging technologies in their current jobs, in their future jobs, I should say. I remember during high school, one of the courses I had to do was learning how to type. And I'm very glad that I can, because it just means I can do things much faster when I have to write a lot of stuff online. I want to move over to some of the Q&A that we received, and thank you very much to those who sent through questions. This one comes from Ephraim Matillo, who is from Mindanao State University Iligan Institute of Technology in the Philippines. I apologize if I butchered all of those names right just there. They're asking about the acceptability and mental health experiences of teachers and students with digital teaching and delivery. Dr. Joyce, I will pass it on to you. In your experience, what are the changes that are happening in terms of mental health, and how can the online adapt to better serve those needs at the moment?
Thank you very much, Anton. This is very important, and thank you for the question. It's a very good question. And in terms of the mental health, and one of the research that a group of my graduate students carried out in April, it was on the Zoom fatigue, because as usually when we have the meetings, sometimes you may pack 5 meetings at the maximum. But when you have the Zoom meetings of 40 minutes in the maximum, you can actually be having packet up to 10 to 12 meetings in a day. And also students with multiple timetable, because they take one module in the morning, another module late morning. So it's a lot of the stacking in terms of the module. So at the end of the day, in April, we found that quite a number of the students that have that Zoom fatigue, as well as the colleagues as well. So the key and the solution to that would be, I believe it's very important that the professors must have the experience of where to have the optimum level, where is a level that, especially the role of the program leader in every faculty, is very important to come in to say that at what maximum hours that the students need to have, and also for the staff as well. It's very important about that optimum mix. And another things about these mental health as well, usually at this COVID time, we will notice that a number of the skills suddenly pop up. It's not suddenly pop up, but all the while they are there, but they become more important. Perhaps it's not to relieve the, probably I will use another way would be to assist the mental health would be, this is a key time that it is very important for the staff, as well as particularly the students, to embed the skills, which I write down over here, that I put down. It's very important at this period that we should integrate the mindset, such as people management skills, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence. These are very important, that we believe that it will help to relieve the situations, especially to help with the mental health. So I will stop at that. And in fact, Anton, I would like to say that I would like to add later on, just to talk about some 4 factors related to digital transformation. Thank you. I'll come back to that later. Thank you.
Yes, please do. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Joyce. Dr. Krishna, in terms of, Dr. Joyce has just spoken a lot about the students' well-being. What about teachers and academics? There's pedagogy, there's a lot of stress. What sort of work is being done to try and alleviate the mental health issues that are caused for academics?
Yeah, actually, I don't know whether this is an authentic information or not, but recently I have gone through a survey conducted by a foreign institute. Most of the students are interested in blended learning. 73% students have voted for blended learning. Only 12% students have opted for face-to-face learning. And of course, 15% students remaining a fully online mode. Similarly, the student community has accepted that they have a positive impact of technology on their learning. Around 81% have voted for positive impact of technology on their learning. And similarly, even teaching community, when they were asked to vote, 85% of teaching community have voted positively for the impact of technology in a positive manner on them. So I don't think there will be a stress on the students or even teaching community when compared to offline teaching through this digitalization. Moreover, this kind of teaching, this digitalized learning is it is like learning at their own pace and at their free time. That kind of flexibility is allowed in this digitalized learning. Any student can record and then play it back afterwards, and then they can have the flexibility of learning it. They can repeat the sessions any number of times. So I don't think the stress feeling will be there. Only issue is how far the teacher is tech savvy. I'm not talking about the learner. The teacher should be a tech savvy. For example, a oral teaching in a classroom, when I look into the eyes of a student, that face-to-face transformation is easy. But if I want to transfer things orally, some technical courses, analytical courses, it becomes very difficult to understand and to grasp the subject by the learner. So in such a case, training on interactive whiteboard is essential for the teacher. So unless he is familiar with the use of gadgets that are essential for this digitalized teaching technique, the student as well as teacher, both of them have to face the consequences, and then they really feel stress in imparting the knowledge or in grasping the knowledge. So once properly trained, there won't be any problem with this kind of digitalized transformation. That is what I feel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Krishna. That's a very good point, actually, that while there certainly is a Zoom fatigue, there is a potential that the online and digital can alleviate some of the other in-person stresses around there. Raghav, I know that you have some comments on this around mental health from Coursera's perspective. Would you like to provide those?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. And, you know, I have a personal take on this as well. I have a son who's just gone into college first year, and I have a daughter who's in class 10, and they're spending 10 hours on their laptops, you know, presumably studying all the time. And it's not a healthy situation to be in. So personally, I would love to go back, or rather go to a world where maybe 20–30% of the education is happening online, but I'd love for them to go back to campus for sure. And I think mental health or just the fatigue is definitely a point that I think all of us should be thinking about. But there are some positives that we are learning as well. So we're finding, for example, on the Coursera platform, which has, you know, millions of learners, 70 million learners on our platform, that while many individuals in the last 8 months have been learning career-related skills on our platform, the fourth biggest domain actually on our platform has been health. And this has grown a lot significantly. And this is not, you know, clinical health, but we have seen the growth in topics like a course called the Science of Wellbeing from Yale University. You know, there were 500,000 people who had taken this course pre-COVID, and now it has gone to upwards of 2.5 million people. Imperial College London launched a course on Coursera just around the time when COVID hit, called Science Matters. Let's talk about COVID-19 and how, can non-medical people understand what COVID means and kind of understand this well. It's been taken by hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And, it hit me personally when the head of the COVID task force in my condominium came to me and said, I've taken this course on Coursera to understand how we should be ready for, being ready for COVID-19 around here. So we've seen a lot of good positives as well in terms of being able to provide education related to mental health to COVID to people around the world as well. We're also very conscious that it's not easy for faculty to be teaching online. And so we are doing some work on that side as well that might be worth mentioning. So a few weeks ago, we partnered with Zoom and we are launching a feature called Live to Coursera in partnership with Zoom, where a faculty member who's teaching on a Zoom class can automatically get that class recorded, can get it chunked up into smaller modules, and those modules can come and sit both on Zoom and on Coursera for students to take that class later offline as well. And so we're making, other features will come online as well, but we're doing a lot of investments in saying, how can we make it easier for faculty to be teaching online as well, along with, using some of the content that's available on the Coursera platform. So yeah, so that's a little bit of a personal and professional story, if you will, Anton.
Thank you very much for that, Raghav. And I think it's also very important to remember that as well, that there are extracurricular opportunities to combat some of the stresses that we're all experiencing at this time. Dr. Sandeep, we are very quickly running out of time, but I'll pass over to you in terms of mental health for both teachers and students. What sort of opportunities do you see are presenting themselves?
Sure. My take would be that it's too early to judge the mental health issues because some surveys have happened in terms of their preferences, choices, and other things, but a deeper study or analysis probably is not available because the students haven't come back and once again realize what they are missing. See, whatever is served to you at that time, you say, hey, it's fine. But when you go out of that and you start missing that, then you realize whether it was good for you or not. So there are many, many psychological or personal issues which are involved in that. Yes, change will always be impactful, difficult, and therefore anyone can say that it was difficult for me in the transition. But the transition was difficult partly because of the non-availability of the devices or the good quality of connectivity, or maybe initial readiness. But now I find in our classes, easily the attendance is 90%. I'm not saying the level of attention. I'm saying the level of attendance is easily 90%. In classes where I didn't expect these to be 90%, they are there. I have a law faculty and I thought law will be the least tech savvy. But when I did run a survey that who will be ready for conducting the online examinations, various things, I think law gave me the highest response, highest positive response, and therefore you cannot take them for granted. I'll say that it will be less impactful in long run in terms of mental health adversely, because this teaching can be multimodal. This teaching can be very, very immersive. In a classroom, immersion is very difficult except for the eye contact. For example, if I want, let's say, things to be shown by AR, VR, or maybe animation, etc., is not easy to do it in the class. Or even if I can do a virtual lab in the class, it's not possible. But now with the new thing, it will be possible. So teaching learning will be very immersive. Imagine if I'm teaching you history as a subject by creating all those wars and all those kingdoms and all those palaces and forts going 400, 500 years back with time machine concept and various other things. Teaching will become very, very immersive. And therefore, I would say it's going to be a positive thing, in my opinion. One last answer I'd like to give you. We do a lot of professional courses. Generally, the contact hours are not more than 16, 18, 20 hours in a given semester. And therefore, we have decided that not, generally speaking, a single day will not have more than 3 to 4 classrooms. 4 will be exceptional, but 3 would be general. And even those 3 hours of engagement would be divided in forenoon and afternoon so that no one has a continuous exposure. Continuous exposure to the screen is probably a little bit more tiresome than the mental thing. The mental thing will be less because one can repeat easily, one can translate, one can Suppose I'm speaking something very general, which is known to my students. They can just run through my presentation at a 1.25 speed in the video rather than listening to me whole the time, or they can make it slow if they don't probably understand me. So there are lots of features which will help them rather than dissuade them with the new technology. And the last good point would be feedback taking and giving and analyzing will be instantaneous with the electronic things. It will help teacher to tell teacher whether you are right or wrong, whether students are liking it or not, whether you should go slow or fast. And therefore, there are a lot of small important corrections which will help the teaching learning in this particular method. And therefore, mental health would be slightly improved in long run, not in short run. Let's not judge it in short run.
Thank you very much for that, Sandeep. QS is doing ongoing pulse surveys of academics, and the point about eye contact that you made was actually brought up at least once, in which the respondent said that not being able to see into the eyes directly and make that connection, there was a lot of non-verbal communication that was getting lost. So it would be interesting to see if there is a new form of non-verbal communication being developed in the online space. Lily, considering the work and the policies that SHED is undertaking in the spirit of generosity, how do you see the mental health of both academics and students being improved or affected within this digital transformation?
I'd like to respond to this also as a mother, as a parent, or as a child who is doing online. And that's why we've always emphasized on flexible learning, that it is about the student. We have to look into their conditions, the pace of their learning, the place where they are, and to really make everything available. Um, the um, the resources must be made available to the students. It is not just about the students and the teacher. It is also about the family, the community, and how they can all put this together. Right now, because we just came from massive typhoons, the students are asking for academic break, if not academic freeze. But we hear them, and it's important that you listen. That you listen also to these students and the conditions that they are in right now, and we become flexible about it. But more importantly, we need to also understand the faculty. The faculty is not just a teacher. He or she is also a parent. And I know the difficulty of working from home and doing all of this online teaching while they probably also cook. And I do that. I do that even while working from home. So it's important that we have conversations, that we provide platforms wherein they're able to also bring out their grievances or or address this. And and SHED is providing also that it's not all about capacity building on online learning, but we also have some programs on mental health and even in sports on how do we do sports and physical activity even at the time of online learning. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Lily. We are fast running out of time. In fact, we're going to go a little bit over, but I would like to end by asking each of the panelists to give one final thought before we close off. And if we can keep this to a sentence or a paragraph each. Dr. Sandeep, what is your final thoughts for this session?
The teaching learning will change significantly. Teaching will become less and learning will become more. It will shift from teacher to the student in terms of prime activity. Right now, the responsibilities are with the teachers. The teachers themselves will be the co-learners with the students. The way we assess and examine them will change. There will be group examinations for theory. There will be open book examinations. Various things will change. Everything which was probably unimodal right now will become multimodal. For example, and with that I'll conclude, the teaching learning possibly will happen through blogging, sticky notes, concept mapping, virtual workspaces, case studies, virtual labs, virtual development platforms, cooperative learning, project-based learning, everything. Now, these things unfortunately do not happen right now, but with the change which we are seeing now, many such things will come. And therefore, it will be more interesting and possibly more satisfying. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Sandeep. Dr. Joyce, what is your final thoughts for the session?
Thank you, Anton. I would like to end by sharing this. First of all, will be QS conversation has touched on a very important topic on the digital transformation. It is very timely because people, digital technology, and education system can together develop the skills for the future. So what I would like to say that would be what I wanted to share earlier on, where a lot of the time when we talk about digital transformation, we talk about technology. In fact, digital transformation is not just about technology. There are people, technologies, there are processes, there are infrastructure. And today, I'm very glad to be one of the panelists. We talk about the people and where we talk greatly about the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set. So I will end here and look forward to another opportunity to work with you, Anton, and the co-panelists and the audience to discuss this topic again at the next opportunity. Thank you and good evening. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Joyce. I look forward to doing that sometime in the future. Dr. Krishna, for you, what are your final thoughts for this session?
Yeah, this digital transformation make the students and disciplined. That is my opinion. Unless they are self-directive, they cannot attend the classes on time and they will miss the opportunity. And at the same time, this is an opportunity for them to learn creative things by means of the teacher using the virtual reality or augmented reality platforms, and that creativeness also will develop. But the only issue, as my co-panelists pointed out, it should not be a 9-to-5 affair. It should be, as I said in the beginning, a spaced learning technique should be used. For every lecture, there must be a gap. Then only, without much stress, the students can be able to learn a lot through this digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that,
you.
Dr. Krishna. Raghav, for you, what are your final thoughts for the session?
I think from what we are seeing around the world, I think we may be entering a future where, college education will extend to beyond 4 years of college. And I wrote an article which was published in the India Today yesterday, where I asked a question that will we have college for life, where you come into college, but you stay connected with college forever. And I think digital transformation of higher education can possibly be the backbone of that.
Thank you very much, Raghav. And finally, Lily, what is your final thoughts for this session?
For government, that government can be agile and can be responsive if we have a whole nation approach, and that is really reflective of the Philippine experience. And the way that we can really harness all these opportunities is also through partnerships. That's why we're really looking forward to all our local and international network, and more especially our future partnership with Coursera for the Coursera on campus. And just to touch on what Rajiv said, true, because this is the thoughts also of the chairman, that I think this is not about face-to-face or online. That is not the conversation. It is about flexibility. It's about giving options to our students during their students' life and even beyond their university life on how they will learn. And connectivity is not just about digital connectivity, but also through programs, through policies, and through shared vision.
Thank you very much for that, Lily. Dr. Sandeep, you might have one more comment, and then
just one quick word. A lot of people have fancy to say digital divide. And I must say that as an end or conclusion, that digital divide will actually become digital provide. It is not going to be digital divide. Technology, once becomes big, it will be a provider to all of us. And that's the final take on digitalization. Thank you.
That is a very good way to end it. Thank you very much for that, Sandeep. Thank you very much to, again, Dr. Joyce, Dr. Sandeep, Tony Lily, Dr. Krishna, and Raghav for joining me. And of course, thank you very much to the audience for joining me as well. This is the final QS in Conversation live for 2020. We will be back after a brief hiatus in 2021. Thank you very much for joining us over these past 6 episodes, including the podcast. We've managed to connect with over 2,000 people, which is very great. You have made this as much a success as possible. I do apologize to everybody who sent through questions. We received quite a few of them, and unfortunately I didn't have the opportunity to answer them. However, do feel free to get in contact and we can pass those on. If you would like to see more while these QS in Conversation Live is going on break, our conferences aren't. Next week we have the QS Apple conference running from I think is it from Wednesday to Friday. Go to qsapple.org for more information. Then a few weeks after that, we have Reimagine Education. Go to reimagine-education.com for more information. Thank you as well to Coursera for partnering with us for these. If you want to find out more about the same digital transformation from a European perspective, go to qsinconversation.com to see the YouTube recording of that. And I would also like to have the opportunity to thank the team. This is not just me. There are many people behind the scenes here at QS and elsewhere that have been assisting. So thank you very much. It's very much a team effort. And on behalf of that team, good night.